Lauren from Hardware Heaven, and today I'm doing a review of the Fractal Design Define XL R2. Now, as I've already done a full review of the Define R4, and this case is very similar, just a little bit bigger, instead of doing a normal review, I'm going to do like a part review, part comparison. And in this video, I'm going to be focusing mainly on this case's water cooling abilities. So let's get started. Starting with the front I/O ports, we've got the same sexy on button as with the R4. We've got two USB 3 ports and two USB 2 ports. We've got the headphone and microphone jacks and the restart button. Looking at the front of the case, we've got the same brushed aluminium effects magnetic door that we had with the R4, with noise dampening foam on the inside. But we've got four 5.25 inch optical bays rather than two, although we do have the same inbuilt fan controller which can control the three included fans at either 5, 7 or 12 volts. Once you unclick this door, you can see where you mount the two either 120mm or 140mm fans. However, with this case, unlike the R4, you don't have the easy to remove dust filter. You do first have to remove the fans before you can remove the dust filter, which is a negative point. Behind it we've got metal brackets to help mount heavy water cooling rads. Looking at the side panel, it's completely plain apart from space to mount either a 120mm or 140mm fan. Once you've undone the two thumb screws, to take off the side panel, all you have to do is open it at an angle, which is different than with the R4, which you had to slide out. Looking at the inside of the side panel, we've got Moduvent covering the fan mount and this noise dampening material. Now, I do like the Moduvent, but like I said in the R4 video, I do think that the noise dampening material is somewhat of a placebo. Looking at the back of the case, we've got space mount either a 120mm or 140mm fan. Now, this is where the extra height comes in as an advantage because we've got 9 PCIe slots rather than the 7 that the R4 had. Although I do find it a little bit weird that the ventilation doesn't come all the way to the top, because if you are using a single card setup, you're more likely to have the card at the top where this ventilation ends. Looking at the bottom of the case, we've got the same AV style features with the R4, we've got a large removable dust filter, and we've got the 4 screws which allow you to move or remove the bottom hard drive cage. Looking at the inside of the case, there's just a few things I want to cover before I build a rig in this case. So we've got 8 removable hard drive bays in 2 hard drive cages. The top cage is removable with these 2 thumb screws, and you can also turn it and put it in this way, and the bottom hard drive cage is removable using the 4 screws I showed you at the bottom. It also has some alternative mounting locations which I'll show you in a minute. So here we've got a 140mm fan with a silver fan grill, and I do think it's a nice touch because it means you won't have any problem with your power supply cables falling in. But the mount also holds a 120mm fan if you'd prefer. And here we've got some large rubber feet for your power supply. The XLR2 has been designed to accommodate water cooling radiators by moving the location of the bottom hard drive cage. This is it in its default position, this is it in its second position, and this is it in its third position. Looking at the radiator bracket itself, it does have large holes to be able to fit up to a 240mm radiator, but not natively a 280mm radiator. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a 280 rad here to be able to look into spacing or modding options, but you can fit 2 120mm fans to this side of the bracket, and then have the screws passing through to the radiator this way. This is the bottom hard drive cage in its second mounting position. You do lose the bottom fan mount, but you gain 50mm for a slim 240 rad. Unfortunately, there isn't enough space for push-pull. With the bottom hard drive cage in its third mounting location, you have a massive 155mm of space to work with, which is enough to be able to fit a thick radiator, such as an Alpha-Cool Nexus Monster in push-pull. However, you won't be able to comfortably fit a power supply longer than 170mm. And as the back of the hard drive cage is very close to the motherboard tray, if you want to use a long motherboard, you may run into issues. As you can see, I have now built a system inside the Fractal Design Define XL R2, and there is a time-lapse video on my personal channel of me building this rig, so if you are interested in that, I'll put the link to that in the description below. But as this is a full tower case, you do have a lot of room to work with, and it supports up to E80X and XL80X motherboards. You've also got a lot of strong cable management grommets, although it would have been nice if there was another small cable management grommet like this here, so that I didn't have to trail the front I/O port cables down behind the back of the motherboard. But a nice feature this case has is even with the monster rad in the front, I've still got space for the bottom hard drive cage, and therefore 4 hard drives or solid state drives. Looking at the roof of the Define XL-R2, we've got space mount either two 120 or two 140mm fans, and the spacing is correct to be able to mount either a 240 or two 80mm rads. Now here I fit a 30mm thick rad, and that's the recommended thickness that I'd go with, along with one set of fans in either push or pull. I would have preferred it if they had offset the fan mounts, like with the Arc Mini, to allow for thicker rads or a second set of fans. But out of the box, the XL-R2 has modular vents covering the fan mounts for noise reduction, the same as with the modular vent covering the fan mount on the side panel. Looking at the back of the Define XL-R2, there is enough space for cable management, although not as much as I would like to have seen from a case of this size. I was a little bit disappointed by the lack of cable tie mounting loops, especially around here and up here. Also, I do find it a little bit strange that the Define R4 has mounts here to fit two solid-state drives on the back of the motherboard tray, whereas the XL-R2 doesn't. So despite the Define R4 being smaller, it actually supports more drives, and that is something that I would like to have seen this case have. But overall, cable management in this case was very easy, and the way that the side panel swings on and off means that even if your cables are bulging up a bit, it is still easy to get the side panel on. Now that I've fit the fans to the radiator rather than the plastic cover, it is much easier to get to the dust filter. All I have to do is remove this. But for those of you who aren't using the radiator, you will still have the same problem I mentioned before, where you have to remove the fans before you can get to the dust filter. So I would have preferred it if they had used the same design as with the Define R4. But it is worth mentioning that as the XL-R2 has a door, you do have to be careful what you put in the optical bays, as even the screws on the XS PCB res prevent the door from closing 100%. Moving on to the conclusion, just like the Define R4, the Define XL-R2 gets the Recommended award. I really love this case and there's very little bad that I can say about it, but I do feel like Fractal have missed an opportunity with this design, because this case has been designed for two very different consumers. Someone who wants a professional, silent workstation, and someone who wants like a crazy water-cooled gaming rig. And the fact this case is so diverse is one of its biggest strengths, but I also feel like it's one of its biggest weaknesses, because if they had just targeted the professional user who wanted, say, a server build, they could have included additional hard drive cage to be used in the alternative mounting location, or even sold them separately, so you could buy a third one, or if you had short enough RAID cards, buy a fourth one and be able to fit up to 16 hard drives or solid state drives in the XL-R2, which made it a full server build. So I do feel like they've missed an opportunity there. Or if they targeted specifically the water cooling enthusiast, made it so it had support for a 360mm rad in the roof by going into the optical bays, and just fit a modular vent. So you've got a choice by either using the optical bay with the modular vent or removing the modular vent and being able to fit a 360 rad in the roof. Or like I said before, offsetting the fan mounts like they did with the Arc Mini to allow for a thicker rad in the roof. So I also feel like they've missed an opportunity there. And I just feel like if Fractal Design had targeted one specific audience, then they would have had a gold award winning case. But the fact that they've tried to target two very different consumers stops it from fully reaching its potential. So I would have liked to have seen something like an XL-R2 professional version or an XL-R2 gamer version or something similar. But saying that, I do really love this case. It is a fantastic case and it's definitely worthy of the Hardware Heaven Recommended award. So that was my review of the Fractal Design Define XL-R2. If you liked the video, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe for more hardware and gaming content, and thanks for watching.